The old mature bucks do not like a bunch of other deer.
Yeah, I think it's because it's almost, I look at it like someone of your age hanging out with teenagers. It's like you don't get a lot. It's like you guys are dumb. You got a lot to learn. Like I think that's how they think. It's like look them running around, getting drunk, throwing up. Like, what's wrong with you, man?
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
Michael Perry, it's pretty cool to have you in Pennsylvania.
Shoot, hey, I think I was talking to Johnny about when we was driving across New York out through all that country, and I was then getting to this part. Hey, it's beautiful up here. That's, the mountains here are really more pretty than the Smoky Mountains to me in Tennessee as far as the way that look is. So it's not as commercialized, so you get to see more of everything, and it's beautiful. So we've seen plenty of shooting houses and stuff too. So there's some people that hunt in New York more than what people in the South realize. And of course here I've seen some historical old movies and stuff that talk about some of the hunting here. So, but I'm glad to be here. Glad y'all invited us or let us. So it's me and Kathy's having a good time, and 3 dogs are maybe a little bit of trouble, but they like hanging out here too. So
ain't no trouble.
So.
No, it's pretty cool. And when you called me there a month ago or so and said you were making this trip you're up in Canada, and a little vacation time for you there. So I was just excited that you wanted to stop through.
Which that's part of the community, the hunting community, is getting to meet the people that we see on YouTube and all that. I've seen a bunch of Johnny stuff, but never got to meet him. We met you several years ago at the Wild Turkey Federation in Nashville, I think. So. And talk to you, then I think we've done one podcast, but that part of our community is what's great about it. As well, we ain't generally not much negativity amongst each other. You'll have some brand kind of specific thing, but other than that, the other part's fantastic. So, I even stopped and talked to Paul Patera on the way up on the other side of.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, and cool. I mean, just an awesome guy to talk to. Buck killer, just loves the outdoors. And just that part of that. I mean, it's just fantastic. Then me and Kathy spent a little time up in New Brunswick, Canada, and we have some history there with some of the hunting we've done, and got to be basically like our second family, and then hung out there for 8 days, I think. So had a great time.
Yeah.
So fishing and seeing a few deer, some bears, and one moose. So just relaxing.
That's awesome. How long ago did you retire?
Last August 16th.
Okay, so still pretty fresh.
Pretty fresh. 59 and a half. That was my birthday. That would have been my birthday, but in February. So that when I could retire was that day at 59 and a half, and be able to manipulate some of my own money. So,
yeah.
What'd you do for work, Michael?
Worked at a chemical plant making a fiber. The end product was carbon fiber that goes on all them new jets and commercial planes, the fighter jets and all that stuff. Anything carbon fiber pretty much. As far as military and space-wise, that's pretty much come from our company. So done that for 28 and a half years, driving 12-hour swing shift and driving an hour each way. So, yeah. So only basically had about 2 weekends a month to hunt without scheduling vacation. So, which made that kind of tough in Alabama because most of the gun hunts on them public lands are scheduled weekends, Now they're like Thursday through Sunday, so you had to play some vacation to kind of get the best out of that. So especially so you learn what time frame to kind of schedule some of that. I think we was talking about that earlier, some specific dates and stuff to kind of key on. So, but got tired of dealing with all that. I mean, getting older, and that swing shift is rough. I mean,
yeah, that's a tough one.
So, and I had a funky schedule, so it was hard to sleep, and then so. Anyway, I've had some good night's sleep since then. So
yeah,
I mean, I got a good routine going. So
yeah, there's a lot of my family that works swing shifts like that, and they talk about how difficult that is over long periods of time, and being on night shift and then being on days, and then did you have it where was it like the traditional like DuPont schedule where you had the 7 days off a month in a row?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. 7 days, or 7 day break swing or something they call it. You have a 7 day break. So basically, you'd start out on, say, a Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, off Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday days, off Monday, work Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, then off the weekend, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday days, off for a week till the next Friday night. It just keeps going. So you could schedule some stuff, but it's still pretty rough on you. So
Yeah.
But you got to do what you got to do. So
Yeah.
put me where I'm at today. So I appreciate every bit of it. So
Yeah, 100%. And did that, I bet it probably wasn't every year, but sometimes did those 7 days fall on a good time where you didn't need to schedule some vacation as far as like prime hunting time or?
sometime, but generally I wanted, the way them hunts are, I wanted to try to tie that into 2 weeks. So I'll try to do something. Then plus if we went out west, which we did a few times, trying to put that together where you could get 2 weeks with only using a limited amount of vacations. So it was tough, kind of, because again, because deer season goes by so fast, so you just trying to get that, and plus you got other people trying to take off too, so it makes it a little bit tough. So you got to pick, and you're gonna lose some days, some prime days, but you still have to pick your best and try to get it. So other than that, I could move it around. So of course, we had 2 or 3 different management areas that were hunting that would have a different rut. So if I didn't get what I kind of wanted, I could play it into a different area. It might not be quite as a big a deer, but still good hunting. So.
Nice. And with what was it like last year, and then last year with being retired and getting to hunt?
Yeah, it was fantastic. But first year I've not killed a buck on the main property that in a long time. But Kathy got one, so that made that better. I passed up a few, but still had a good season, killed some. So
yeah,
went to Kansas and I got with the best part of that is when we went to Kansas, we did not have no time frame to get back.
Yeah.
So we stretched that out. So and that,
Then you could be more particular. Sometimes you're waiting for something better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You got more time.
Yeah.
And I used to tell Beau, I said, I would hunt all season and not kill a deer, but I look at it and I'm like, look at what I learned and how the season changed, man. It was still a success.
Right.
Having all that time to hunt and hunt all that from beginning to end and not harvest anything, it's still...
Right. Yeah, that's the best way. Just try to stay positive about that, even because you're learning stuff when you're not shooting them. Generally, should be, And then of course, pass some, so you learn something passing some.
Exactly. And I always look at it as like, man, as soon as I shoot this deer, my season's done, and I don't want to be done. So now I'll just maybe go to a different state or something. But this is hunting these mountains here in PA. I really enjoy it, and it only comes around once a year, and then. You put a tag on too soon, you're missing a lot of hunting in the snow or rut or whatever. But
that makes that tough. We can kill 3 in Alabama, so we got a little bit of leeway on that. So
yeah,
that's bucks. Does you can, if you bow hunt, you can shoot 1 a day. I think they've opened some stuff up. They're going to. It'll be 2 does a day in places because their population is just booming. So
really,
yeah. So plenty of deer.
What does that make it like when hunting the rut? Do you feel like, or is that just what you're used to with a lot of deer?
Well, that's in specific areas. Now, the main area is still a growing population. It's still not like the rest of the state. It's more of a big woods situation, so it can't really have that carry capacity.
Yep.
It's getting a little bit better, but it's still a lower number compared to other places. So other places, it can be just, does run everywhere, and you see a bunch of young bucks going everywhere. But the big bucks are just laid up with those, so it kind of makes it tough because there's so many deer. So you got to kind of fight through that. So I prefer the low population areas. So you seem to get like more bucks traveling and more buck movement. So.
Yeah, and Johnny, what do you think about that? Like, you've hunted in a lot of different places, and also seeing like some of the areas that we mutually hunt in PA. As the population has gotten higher over the last few years, have you seen any struggles with that?
I don't think so. I think they still, like in our areas, we have like concentrations, whether it's a good cut, good habitat for like a population of yearlings, does, and I feel like it's like a community to where that buck, the number of deer I don't think matters to him. I think survival matters to him more, and he's going to pick out a couple doe groups, couple like families that you would say that live in the community, and he's going to stay like under the radar and check those, and probably maybe it might affect on how much he's moving, because he's right in tune with them and living right with them. But I think that's just in general when you talk about mature deer, they're still going to live that way.
Yeah.
Whether there's 8 million does.
Yeah.
But I think in general, it's how much scent is in the air. Like I know when areas like Beau's you guys are both going to Iowa this year, and I know the scent is there, and I think it just gets their brain turns it to mush. They just run everywhere, because it's just everywhere. You take a buck that, like maybe in the northern New England areas that they don't smell it that often. It's like out of sight, out of mind, but when it's there everywhere, it just kind of mess you up. But I mean, even like we talked about that deer in Iowa, that 170 I was hunting, and I learned from that deer because the first doe came into heat around the 5th, 6th of November, and there's a good population of deer there, and I was in a bunch of big rubs where that 170-inch deer was living, but he wasn't there. There was a doe that come through with a train of 130 to 40 to 20s, and I'm like, where's the big guy? His rubs were there. I didn't even see him yet, and I started probing around, checking areas, and it wasn't until November 10th, after does are already in heat, he was still nocturnal. Wow. Because he didn't want all that aggravation, all those other deer, these older deer, they're going to get their does. They know, hey, I get 2 or 3, I'm happy, I need to survive. And I've seen it a lot of times that these mature deer are still nocturnal up until about the 10th of November. I could see they're leaving their bed like 20 minutes before dark, and that's when I saw that deer the first time. And I know their does were in heat already, but he still was low key.
Oh, you think that part of that could be the does going to him because he's the guy in the area, the older does, and then later he has to start traveling more for the younger does? Possible?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the first one that comes in heat is just taking a lot of bucks, and maybe you do have some of the older mature does that just he knows personally, like I said, like the doe groups and that he's they're going to meet up, like more of like under the radar, maybe, they know where he lives. Definitely, yeah, that.
I know, talking about that, I've kind of over the years when, I just started running cameras pretty seriously, to say 10 years ago, and I've kind of figured out that the old mature bucks do not like a bunch of other deer.
Yeah.
They just don't, no matter what. You'll have, say, some 130s to maybe 140s, a 5-buck group or so that'll hang out together, but the ones that's up a level above, older ones, they might have one other buck hanging with them, but they aren't never with that dang group of other ones. So you think that's because they know that they're trying to stay alive, and they don't want to be where all the action's at, so they just kind of stay back or stay away. So
yeah, I think it's because it's almost, I look at it like someone of your age hanging out with teenagers. It's like yeah. You don't get a lot. It's like right. You guys are dumb. You got a lot to learn. Like I think that's how they think. It's like
right.
Look, I'm running around, getting drunk, throwing up. Like, what's wrong with you, man? Yeah. Come on, can't you handle your alcohol? And you look at someone your age, like how often you getting drunk and throwing up, like or being foolish with their money, chasing women is like. Right. I feel like that's how it is. Like I think about it in my head. Like recently, I thought about it. Like, why is it? I just think that their maturity levels up here, and they've learned a lot, and they experienced this, and they can't relate to them. Because they're at a certain age.
That's a good point, because I remember seeing one time a doe coming through, and there's a young buck hollering her tail, just wide open chasing. She's zigzagging, trying to get rid of it. Then an hour later, I see something coming. Looks like a dog, but it's a buck coming. He's a 4-year-old. But he's got his nose probably 2 inches off the leaves, just slowly walking, following her track, just, waiting. She's going to come sooner or later, and the other young buck will finally give up, and he just knows when the time's going to be right, and he ain't running, he's not chasing.
Yeah.
So, that's a pretty key point to pay attention to. That they don't have to do all that. They've already learned. We ain't got to do all that chasing. Just wait till she's right, then she'll be ready. So.
And I think a lot of it, like when you get a hunting pressure, a lot of it happens at night.
True. Oh yeah, true.
Even around here, and like when you get a lot of hunters in the woods, that really messes up the mature deer, the bucks. Yeah. And I don't think like I said, they'll do a lot of stuff under night, under the cover of darkness. And I remember before we had the 3rd week of November to bow hunt. That's when our season ended about the 10th or 12th of November, and that's when, man, we need that 3rd week, and they finally opened it to us, and that's when you drive down a road, and there's bucks running everywhere, and Then now we get that season, and now I talk to people all over up in this area, and it's like you get to the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, and it's just like, it's dead. I ain't seeing nothing. I'm like, well, what happened 8 years ago, 10 years ago till now? It's like you got too many guys in the woods hunting, and they're just going under the cover of darkness and learning to breathe then.
And the hunters want another week. They want to try to keep adding a week because because the deer keep backing up.
Yeah, they just adjust according to human pressure, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I believe that too. So, them old does are smart as anything.
Oh,
they know. So.
Yeah, them old does, they're you shoot an old mature doe like that, that's just as much of a trophy as an old buck.
Yeah.
You know, Michael, as far as like, so we had done, for anybody that's listening, I didn't do a good job of giving a full backstory on Michael, and that's mostly because you've been on the podcast before. So I highly recommend going back and listening to the episode I did with you a few years ago and hearing some more of that backstory with it. But we've been hanging out all day, so kind of getting into it here. But I mean, how long have you been hunting? And
well, I started out, we didn't have much deer, so I basically started out squirrel hunting and trapping was the thing. That was my only way I could get into the woods because we kind of lived in a smaller city, wasn't no deer. And my dad started trapping, and the fur price was good, and they had moved from duck hunting to rabbit hunting. Then the deer started getting a little bit popular, and there was some public land you could go, and they were doing that, but I couldn't go. So I wanted to do something. So he started trapping, and I was following him around. Well, I want some traps. So I started out trapping on my bicycle when I was young. And then at 17, I went in the Navy for 5 years, and then done a little bit of hunting with my dad and my brother and stuff. But I didn't kill my first buck little rack buck until I was 30. Then a first decent one at the age of 31. So I was later on. Then of course I'm working 28 years of swing shift. Mm-hmm. So that tied in that. But grew up with outdoor stuff and always loved it, and fishing and all of that. Just the deer hunting part was limited until I got in my 20s, late 20s, and then 30s. So then, of course, I love it. So I just stuck with it. So, of course, adjusted on what type of hunting and starting to try to pass and getting bigger bucks. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I loved learning about your story in your book that I had read, and forgive me, what is the name of it again?
What are you asking me for?
The name of your book?
I don't even know. I can't remember the exact name. So it's like Secrets to Mature Bucks Hunting or something like that.
Why are you asking me?
Yeah, I can't remember. You don't never ask somebody that. I'm just kidding, but I can't remember the exact name of it. But it's something Secrets to Mature Bucks or something.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the description there. But it was after I'd met you and I had heard about you for a while, and getting to read that book was awesome. I love the way you told your stories and your tactics through stories, and I think that is the most beneficial way to learn, because it's super difficult to just create this magical scenario. You could be like, oh, I like to hunt these ditches or these draws. Well, it's like, until you can paint that picture, then you can feel it, because every spot is just a little bit different in the way that, and I think learning those methods to doing that is super important. And I learn best through stories, and I feel like a lot of people do. So I think the way you wrote that book was really good.
Yeah, that was the way I wanted to do that. I wanted to tie in, so-called tactics with actual hunts and actual success or no success, because it's true life stuff. Just preaching tactics all the time without any story going on with it's kind of tough to me. So and that's the way I like hearing things. I like hearing all the stories that go along with that, how it happened, the history of it or whatever. So it makes it a better story to me and a better read, I guess you could say. So
and I like stories too, because I know when I was younger and I read magazines like in my teens and 20 about hunting, and it was like, I just wanted that black and white answer. This is what you have to do. And where I hunted wasn't exactly where these guys were writing, their articles. Like, it might have been on the other side of the country. I didn't know, but
back when I don't know about you, but when I was young, the only magazines you have like Outdoor Life, Field and Stream, and they're all northern or midwestern stuff. Didn't really apply to that.
Yeah, and so like I remember Buckmasters had stories and the way I look at it is like you read a guy's story, his success, or like you said, failure. What this happened to him, his deer at noon come down the fence row, and at November 8th, raining, or look, hey, moved during the rain or something, like foggy, windy. Like, oh, okay, this guy's seen this big buck in a crazy wind. Well, it happened to him to where that helped me more than tactics, like you said. I remember in high school, the one girl that sat behind me, I knew her and her dad, like friends of us and ours, and I remember her dad would bring buck, like every time he got done with a Buckmasters, he'd give it to his daughter, and she'd bring it in like to school, and like here, like, oh man, I mean, I'd be in class, I'd have the book, but I had my Buckmasters in front, boy. That's why it took me a while to graduate, because I wasn't reading English, I was reading Buckmasters.
That's awesome. Oh,
yeah, but I think that it's, you just get so much more out of it, and I think it also helps on the validity side, because I mean, anybody can write anything down or read something and just reiterate what somebody else said. And I think hearing that through story, through real experience, just like, I don't know, it's, I don't know the right word, captivating maybe, but just like, I don't know, I get more into that. And I think you did a really, really good job in your book of doing that. And I think it was cool too, like when you came here, we're at, I don't even think I mentioned it, but we're at Johnny Stewart's cabin here. And when you came here to film some stuff with me and Johnny separately, it's true story. Like you asked me to, bring some deer heads. So actually, if you're watching a video version kind of above Mike's head, those are 3 of my bucks that I brought to tell some stories on. And then Johnny's obviously got this cabin full of deer that we were talking about. And it brings out details and things that can help people through that story.
Right. Yeah.
So
I love hearing stories just like Johnny was talking about. The story that goes with it, I love it. So.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And Mike took us around the room, and I just picked like 3-4 deer, and like told him.
It automatically come to your mind which ones you want to talk about. You didn't have to think about it long.
Yeah, you just look at it.
So.
It comes right out. But
ones with your friend, that meant a whole lot. That part of it, the camaraderie of it again, the partnership of it. I mean, your buddies, the ones share them hunting stories with and hunting events. It's awesome. So. Yeah,
and like you said, just looking at them, and it all just comes back to you, But being we got Mike here, he's a new face, but we do got some other new faces here, Beau. We'll have to talk about these guys, and I got 2 back here. So tell us give us a little rundown of who's up behind Mike there, You
want me to tell a story?
I want you to tell a story of these some fresh young faces.
They're not staying here. You're not keeping them, John.
Well, you really neglect them. Beau brings these deer heads over. They're dusty, dirty. He's like, yeah, that one was in my basement. I start wiping them off, talking to him. I said, you guys can stay here, free rent. I won't have you in the basement. I'll have you with these other buddies. Yeah. I was like, they're not well taken care of over there. Oh. I don't know. I mean, Peter or someone, we have to tell him, neglect. This is animal neglect here.
I know. Maybe what I'll do is I'll let them come on vacation here from time to time.
That'd be nice.
Uncle Johnny can take care.
I'll have to wipe them down and clean all the dust off them. But just tell us, what's the lower one there, Beau?
Yeah, I'll tell one of them. The rest they can go watch on Michael's YouTube channel. But the lower one there, that one is my first archery buck that I had shot, which just so happened to be a 9.5-year-old deer, which is still my oldest deer to date, which is pretty wild. But that deer was a pretty cool story where I was going to help my uncle track a buck, and when we were going there, or I was going to help him track a buck, and he said, follow the stream up and you'll run into me, or not track it, drag it. He already had shot it. So I was going there. I get to the parking lot, and there's 2 ways to go. There's just a little tiny stream going up this way and a nice big creek that's going this way. So I took the big creek, went across it, got wet, started following it up, and wasn't finding my uncle, but I was finding a lot of really good buck sign. Come back, find him at the vehicle already, and I went the wrong way. He was talking about the small stream. But it led me to finding some incredible sign, just scrapes tore up, smelling ruddy. and I went in there and hunted it. And I'd missed a deer in there first, and the first day I hunted it, and then a couple days had went by. I can't remember because I was still in high school, so I wasn't hunting consecutive days, maybe other than the evenings. I don't remember the exact specifics, but I remember it was a Saturday, the last day of the season. My dad said he was going to come with me and climb in a tree behind me. So we went in, took the waders in. I'd leave the waders at the water and throw my other boots on and climb up. And honestly, was only going not even a quarter of the way up the hillside, and there were some trails leading from this bottom where the scrapes were. But when I was sitting down at the very bottom, I kept seeing deer crossing up a little higher. So that's why I moved up. And I took my climber up in this tree, and it was right before dark, heard a buck grunting down low, making a scrape, and I just grunted real deep at him, and he just growled back and came running up. Or not running, but he basically walking fast up in, and ended up making a really good shot on him, about 22 yards, and he piled up. And I was telling Mike when we were doing the video, at that point, I was just like an absolute train wreck. I'm not saying I'm a world better now, but like I was a train wreck when it came to actually shooting a deer, and couldn't hold my emotions together. But for some reason I think I was so determined from being so mad at myself for screwing up so many times that it worked. And it was so awesome. Have my dad there behind us there, but it was a cool experience. And what really, I think the learning lesson with that was it led me down a whole trail of a lot of deer being shot using creek bottoms and waterways as travel, and at least finding that sign and working off of it. So it was pretty cool.
So Beau contacted me last week and said Mike's going to come through. He's coming from Canada. Maybe we'll do a podcast at your place. I was like, that's great. I said, I just picked up my 2 deer from my taxidermist, and like Beau said, I talked about it with Micheal, so you could check out his YouTube about the stories. But the one above Beau is the one from the blizzard. Well, that's on my YouTube channel, so you can go see that. But this one is too. That's the North Dakota deer. But
yeah, it looked good.
I got up here last night.
Beautiful.
When I got up here, they rode up in the back seat with me and the boys. We got up from, back home, and
just y'all hanging out, sitting here.
Oh yeah, we had a good time last night. I got up here, had a beer, asked them where they wanted to be positioned. We had a nice talk. I position the new ones lower so I can look at them. The older ones get up higher.
So you don't have to lift your head up too much.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing place. I mean, it's amazing. Big bucks everywhere. It's awesome. I could stay here for a week. I mean, just without even taking a shower. I mean, it was fantastic.
I know how you feel because that's what I do.
So awesome. Hey, when you talk about that grunting, do y'all deer up here do a lot of that more vocalization? Do you talking about the roar and stuff like that? Y'all hear that quite frequently? So,
I hear it once a year, a roar. Really? I bet you up here.
Yeah. I feel like they're pretty vocal. I hear a decent amount of vocalization throughout the year. I've
heard it a few times in Alabama, and I was wondering, a few of my friends have talked about it. Do you think, when you start having more mature bucks in the general area, that roar is more of a competitive thing versus the normal grunting or something, or just why do they actually do that?
And Johnny, I'll ask you here in a second. My thought too is that for a long time, it's still decent, but the buck to doe ratio has been pretty good. So there's been, I'm not saying 1-to-1, but a pretty good buck to doe ratio, creating that competitive nature of leaving a lot of sign, being a little bit more aggressive in those places. Like even when the population was so low that you could sit a whole week and not see a single deer, you'd see so much sign in the woods that you'd be like, there must be a ton of deer here, but it wasn't. It wasn't that way. It was just, I believe it was the competitiveness. Then I'd go to places where I would hunt, say in the mountains in West Virginia, and this one place I was hunting had a lot of does, and it was way out of whack of that population. I didn't see nearly the amount of sign. The big bucks were there, but they weren't leaving the amount of sign, and that was my thought, was the buck to doe ratio.
I think you're right. I think the buck to doe ratio is so tight that when they give that roar out, it's not because a buck might only breed 2 or 3 doe. Really, they don't say it. It's not like in these type of areas. So it's like 2 to 3 times out of 365 days, and I feel like it's like competitive and it's right on the like. I feel like the doe's he's so worked up, because it's him 2 or 3 times out of the year that he just roars.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
What do you think? Do you have any?
Well, I just thought it was the more like it could be the doe and buck doe ratio in the South too, in certain places. I only heard it in I think 2 different pieces of public down the South. So, but I've started to hear it like more, and so I actually killed 2 of the bucks I killed this year were me doing that. So one was a visual, I could see the buck, and it was in Kansas. Another one a blind called with a deep roar and stuff. Sucker come trotting in within 5 minutes. I'm talking about trotting in looking. So that's very cool. So, and usually I never even thought about doing anything like that until the last couple of years. So
yeah.
So
and do you find that? I mean, out of the areas you hunt, do you have a lot of hunting pressure for the most part? Okay.
Especially early. So
okay. When you say early, like early in October,
when them gun hunts open. We have the main area we hunt. They have an early gun hunt, so that's before most other places in the state. So you'll have the influx of people that have clubs or private land. So I can go hunt this land for another $20 on the opening weekend. A chance to kill a big one because it's got big ones. They'll fly in there early and do a bunch of scouting, and scent the woods up, so it kind of changes things. But it's a pretty good bit of pressure in the first couple of hunts. So.
Do you think that, or do a lot of those people call a lot?
Maybe. I don't really know because most of the time I'm trying to stay away from them.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to figure out where they're at and stay away from them.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. But, I mean, it's possible. Yeah. It's getting to be pretty popular now. You're getting to see more of that. So.
Yeah. That's why I was curious. Last year I was hunting a place, and I did run into a situation where I had another guy that kept setting up pretty close to me, come in well after daylight. I called him Mad Rattler. I mean, he never stopped.
Man.
I mean, he'd cycle through his rattles, his grunts, and his bleats on repeat. I mean, just
really?
nonstop. I was like,
wow,
man, I don't think I should call ever here.
Yeah.
Like there's some of the, I don't know. It just like it ruined my confidence hearing that going on.
Now, rattling, that's a whole different thing. I'm definitely not a big fan of that, especially for a long time, because most of the time I think like if they hit fight, it's going to be for a few seconds. I've never seen any fighting visually in Alabama, so I might have heard some tinkling, before, but as far as that, where they tearing the woods up, I've never heard that. So it's very rare for me to do that blind, unless it's a last minute thing. I see someone way off and he didn't come to grunt. He kind of gets out of my sight and I'll tear it up just for a few seconds and that's it. Don't do anything else. And see if he comes on that, I'm not doing it because that's overdoing to me. So
yeah,
the more education you're doing for them, the harder it is to get them.
And then being up, and I feel like they can pinpoint. They don't hear no leaves rustling. I'd rather do it when I'm on the ground. There's even times when I break limbs and stuff like that on the ground. Like this year, actually in Ohio, we went to a spot the 24th of October. It was a little point. It was all scraped up. To me, I said maybe there's an aggressive deer in here, and I had a picture of him. He's like in the 30s, like a 10, 135, 138, and had Pete with us, me, and we got in there before light. Thermals falling down to the north-south creek, and we went up one drain and jumped on that point with all them scrapes, and I had the carbon fiber sticks. Timber Ninja, and before I started putting them on a tree, I grabbed them and I went like this, clanked them together. Because I was on the ground, not up in a tree, and Pete's like, "Oh yeah, that's gonna do real good. That sounds like shit." Pete, that's why you're cameraman. I like getting on Pete. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Get up the tree, get set up, and so we're on this point, 2 drains on each side going up the hill, and we're on this point with all the scrapes, and my ears are shot. It's October 24th, 23rd. A lot of leaves fell yet, and down in this drain, as we're looking up. The point comes down, we're looking up, and there's drain over here, and Pete's like, actually, I'm facing up the hill, the tree's behind me, and Pete's like here facing the tree, in his saddle. So he's like, I hear a deer down in that drain behind me. And like I drop milkweed, and he goes, like, not perpendicular to the point into the drain, but like down, like the thermals were still pulling like 9 in the morning. I was like, it's probably a squirrel. Look, I said, look, our scent's going right down in that ditch, you know? It's probably a squirrel. And I can't hear. And I heard some leaves rustling, and I said, he's like, John, I'm telling you, there's a deer down there. I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't tell. And then, so I looked to my left, and what it was, our thermals were going, like, not perpendicular to the point, but like this. And, like, here at 30 yards, I see a big old buck pop his head up and, like, look at the base of my tree. Because that's where, I think he was across the drain. He was on the next point, maybe 200 yards away. And he heard them timber ninja sticks. And, you know, that was his scrapes. And he said, I got to go check that out. And our scent was just bypassing him. Like, he was there. He didn't want to go I think he could have further went down that drain to smell us and cut, but he's just like, I'll just pop my head up there and look. And I'm like, Pete, don't move. There's a big 10-point standing right here looking at us. So then he comes up on the top, and Pete can't even turn around to get the camera out, and his big 10 points at 15 yards.
Golly.
Don't move. And he's staring at our tree. I mean, we're only up 18 feet, but I ruined that. Pete's like, I told you there was a deer down there. I said, next time. That was like his third time with me. Say, hey, you deaf bastard, grab your bow and turn around, you dumbass. There's a deer coming. I said, Pete, that's why you're here. You're not just a cameraman. You're my eyes and my ears. You're 24.
I'm the same way. I can't hear. 99% of the time, I'll see the sucker way before I even hear one.
Me too. I got to look all day. I'm like this. I got to look all day. But Pete will be like, I hear one. I'm like, do you? And I just like look at him like, I look at him like, where's it at? He's like, over here. I said, oh yeah. Does it sound like a deer? Because I can't hear shit. He's like, hold on, let me think. Yeah, it does. I was like, oh okay. Which way is it going? Like it's like play by play.
That's so awesome.
Michael, you're saying about like the last basically 30 years of being pretty serious into hunting. Have you seen certain things change? Like, is the way that you go about hunting in the woods or scouting in the woods? Do you do things differently, or a lot of things the same, or how do you look at that?
Well, you got a few things that's definitely changed. You know, that we didn't have any of the electronics and the apps and all that, you know, the topographical stuff that you can do now. So we was basically driving around or walking around and trying to find tracks either by creek crossings, drainages, or driving dirt roads and seeing where tracks were being used where people were hunting at. So now with that, the stuff that you can use on the internet, you know, look at aerial views and all that, you can get general ideas of places to start. Well, we just a lot more boots on the ground. Now we can at least get some ideas where to start. So that's changed a lot, let alone the clothing and the equipment. It's amazingly different, you know. So I remember, you know, putting all the cotton I could put on and freezing the deck of death. Yeah. You know, because you're walking miles and sweating and that holds that water to you and just, you know, the clothes nowadays, good Lord, is way better. So so you're able to stay, you know, comfortable more and sit more, you know, let alone, the bows and all that being so much better. So as far as scouting, you know, I've just picked that up over the postseason stuff over the last, say, 7 or 8 years, maybe a little bit longer than that part where I used to not do that. Used to. My dad he didn't do that. They all just went in somewhere and just a little bit at season or maybe a little bit before and just start walking. They jump something and try to figure that part out. They didn't really have that type of strategy. And plus they wasn't big buck hunting. They were just deer hunting. Mm-hmm. So that kind of me and my brother kind of changed that thought process after he killed his big and then some other couple of little things that we ain't going to do that. We're not. My dad was when he'd sit somewhere, then hey, you know, he's trying to figure out what's over the next hill. It ain't happening here, so he never was patient like that. So more moving. You know, he killed a few good ones, but most of the time he didn't do that. They were hunting the first rack they could see if it was that big or that big. If it come out, it was shot, so it didn't matter. So.
Yeah. And as far as like with the scouting side of things and the places that you're hunting, do you find that a lot of those places are similar like type of setups, or is it all different depending on the area? Like
Johnny made a real good point, and that's kind of what I started doing is, trying to target an individual buck to me is so daggum tough, because especially like the first place we hunt, when it hits October, he could be anywhere. So you've only got just a limited amount of time. So sure, I'll try that early, but the main focus is trying to find, doe groups and how they're maneuvering and trying to keep up with that, where different cuts or pine beetle kills, how that is affecting, and try to figure out how a buck, where he's coming from, is going to get there to check him. Where can I catch him in a small area to get a shot? So figuring that part out, and cameras help doing that. So that's my biggest strategy, is trying to do that. Putting cameras out like during the spring or February, and then leave them till August, and I'll refresh the batteries and leave them run through the whole season, and trying to get some kind of data for an area where more than one big buck comes to a place looking to check for does, and I can use that for the next season or something. Try to do as much of that as I can. So then, of course, some of them places are repetitive, so you know what they're going to do. Some of them I leave cameras that year round, some of them I don't, but it's just once you start learning some of the areas, like Johnny was talking about, the older you get, the wiser you are, the more patient, and the more things you've realized and seen. Just be a little patient. Know what time to go there. So don't over intrude. So just wait for the right time on a lot of that. So
yeah. So you're using a lot of that historical data to strike at certain places to go into.
Yeah, I try, early season to do something new and, move around on a hunt a place a day or two, then go on trying to catch a buck, on a feed tree maybe, or trying to catch him coming off a secondary point to go somewhere or something. But it's so daggum hard. Them suckers, like you say, they're learning how to get that old. They ain't moving around in daylight much unless it's daggum reason. Most time it's going to be the rut. So it's very rare to catch a big in, daylight.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what you think about this, but something I've struggled with from the early season standpoint, when you get to true big woods, mountain type stuff where there's no ag in the bottom, I mean, they could be bedded on so many different points or draws and stuff early in the season. Like it's so difficult to pick if you're saying you're hunting a bed, or like to pick the right spot to be able to hunt. I just feel like there's so much randomness to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some people that do it to an extent, but it is very, very tough. So, and again, I was talking about the bachelor group stuff. If you find a bunch of sign, it'll be a bachelor group generally if it's early. They're together, kind of still feeding. They're starting to test each other, so they'll start tearing up some trees, stuff like that. If you can find that, but that sign sometimes is hard to find because it'll be any daggone where. They don't. It ain't that part ain't never repetitive. They just float around, browsing and stuff and hanging out. So finding that, you got a good chance of, a decent buck. But finding a daggone monster one somewhere, because he ain't got to do all that. He knows he's the boss. He ain't got to do much of early season rubbing, scraping, or whatever like them young ones are. They're showing out, trying to learn their ways. So that part makes it, harder. So
yeah. What do you think about that, Johnny?
Yeah, I think he's spot on with the mature deer, and you get into the big woods, the browse is pretty much everywhere. I see him feed on them baby maple trees, and I walk through the woods. I see him everywhere. I'm like, so you can't concentrate it.
And if you got mast crop like crazy, they can pick up everywhere they go. And when they're doing all their stuff, where they're going at night, figuring out where all the hunters are going to be, and they're kind of keeping up with that stuff. They can do so much stuff at night you ain't aware of, and that is crazy. And then they don't have to go to a certain field or a certain feed tray. They don't have to. A big buck does, especially in the South, because he's already got his body matured. Mm-hmm. He don't have to eat to live, survive most of the time down there, because we don't have that bad of winters. So that part you ain't got to worry about. Where farther north you go, they do got to kind of keep their bodies up for the winters, because it's going to get so cold. So down there, this year we had the worst winter. All the deer allowed in Alabama had the worst winter they ever had. Never seen anything like it as far as cold. So them deer had to learn something. So we'll see how the racks are, because that could affect them, because we had a drought and then no mast crop. So all that. So their bodies probably got a little bit slim. They might not have the big racks this year. So
yeah, Beau and I were talking about how we had an ice layer here this year, and I said, you know what, I think this was an average winter if you take Pennsylvania for the last 50 years. Like, you know what I mean? But the last few years have been mild, and the deer were able to browse, not dig through snow, and I think leading up to this year, which was, if you're taking the last few years, was a little harder. We had some ice, so they couldn't dig in that. I said, Beau, but I don't think that bothers them deer, because you got to go back the last 3 winters, 2-3 winters, and like they had some mild winters here, and they were able to survive and have fat, and leading up into summer and the fall, you keep going north up into Canada or like Maine and that, and you're talking about snow like that, they're surviving. And so this really didn't bother them,
And you made a good point about, like, for us in the areas that we hunt, it was really good mast crop. I mean, all of the food was there, and I think they went into winter better. They went into winter very ready for,
and they come out of last winter healthy.
Yeah, so
that helps going into this winter. So they're like,
because we had snow from December through March. Nonstop, but there was only a short period of window where we had the ice layer where it thawed and froze over. That's when it gets bad, because they can't dig down and eat anything on the ground. It's all just browse at that point, as far as woody browse. And I think that can be difficult when they have that and you start seeing those browse lines, especially in areas that have a little more deer. It seems to make that a little bit more difficult. But yeah, and I did want to go back to something that you had said, Michael. You were talking about running cameras and finding some of those spots that you're looking for, like multiple bucks that are coming through. That is that like, are you did you say that you were focusing like between a couple different doe groups that they focus on, around a doe group, or like how are you, like what are those types of areas? What do those look like?
Well, kind of looking at the area on the topos and aerial footage stuff, and seeing where some cuts or whatever's going on. Then tracks is what I'm looking for. Generally, it's big tracks somewhere. Then maybe old big rubs or old droppings, whatever, and then looking at it and say, I know those are probably going over there or bedding over there. It's a sunny side point when it's later on toward the rut. So when I look at it, and I don't care about inventory really. I want to try to find a dang place to hunt. So I don't put a camera somewhere unless I know I can get to a tree, access it without crossing anything. So I'll try putting the camera there, and if I get what intel I want, I've already kind of got a tree picked out. So basically the track stuff, looking for tracks too associated with that, because you don't have generally, especially like last year. That's another thing I wanted to talk about is the food versus how they rub. It's great but generally when I'm going, I'm looking for tracks, and then maybe find an old bed maybe or something on some kind of nasty points or some kind of thick pines or hemlocks or whatever, and then try to put a camera associated with, generally most of mine is associated with some kind of crossing. It might be half a mile from it, might be right up on it. It just depends on how the edge are or what kind of habitat change or terrain change that I can get to and kind of hunt it, so do that. But my question for y'all is about whenever you have a bunch of mast crop, like if we have plenty of mast crop, I feel comfortable hunting. But when we don't have a daggum mast crop, I'm nervous daggum wreck, because I don't seem to have no luck, because I think when the more food is there early, they get that fat reserve up, they can go around and show out, make all the sign and travel more and do all that. But when we don't have it, them suckers are daggum locked down somewhere to me, or move something somewhere. So it kind of makes it tougher for me. What do y'all think about that as far as the sign associated with plenty of food early? So
I've tried to find, so a lot of the areas I hunt don't even have mast crops to begin with. So the reason for
explain that. That's kind of odd for me.
A lot of different vegetation diversity in the forms of browse for the most part. So a lot of different, say, ages of clear cuts, logging cuts, different types of browse, other food sources that I know will hold deer whether there's mast or there's not. And in some of those places, there's just no oak trees. When I say that, now they're different masts as far as cherries, beech at times, but those areas I can rely on almost year after year after year as far as consistency in that historical data. So I have those, and I also have areas that are heavily reliant on mast, but when those aren't mast years, I just go to a different go to a different area that's got more of that other stuff that I know that they can sustain and they're used to sustaining without having the actual mast crop. That's how I've looked at it. I personally, I have not hunted in an area that, say for example, something that's a dominant oak forest on years when there wasn't mast. I won't hunt it. I'll find somewhere else, because I learned this lesson. I think it was 2018 or 19. I was hunting a new area and I scouted it in the spring, in the postseason. I was like, man, the big buck sign I was finding on top of this ridge and up high where all these oaks were was just insane. Huge rubs, scrapes. I was like, I'm golden. I hung all these cameras in the spring, so I wasn't coming back. I came back. I think after I got done elk hunting out west, it was like October later, and I wanted to be in there and checking them, but I didn't have deer on them, and there wasn't sign, nothing. I'm like, what is going on? And I ended up dropping down lower in elevation, and this was some pretty steep, higher elevation stuff. As I went down lower, there was some cherry trees that were dropping and some beech nuts, and I can't remember, there was something else that was dropping lower, but all that sign was down low then. So they didn't go that far in that situation, but they were adjusting, and that they were even seemingly bedding lower. Everything was associated around that food. Now that was in more of a micro area versus, but it still had some diversity versus like areas that are just, oak trees.
Yeah,
I know, like most of the state land or public land that I hunt in the different states, like I want a mast crop, because usually it's all forested land, whether it's Ohio or Illinois or whatever, but the deer are going to be more in the forest first off for me to hunt. And yes, you're going to find more sign. Like we hunted this year in Ohio, and there's been a mast crop in that big state forest for 3 years, and I feel like it tends to, like, I know that state forest for 4 years straight didn't have hardly any of a mast crop, and you'd get few deer, but then there'd be like years that had a mast crop, the deer would be there. But I feel like now that we had mast crop for 3 or 4 years, there's like they're starting to reside there. They're getting pulled in from ag or maybe someone's bait pile, to private land, like down Ohio where we hunted this year in January. There was bucks galore, because, and I said, Beau, there's been acorns here in January, December for the last 3 years. So like they're starting to live here year round. There was times when there'd be a random year that had mast and nothing, and like they would disappear. You wouldn't see them all year. Like I run trail cameras, but the deer like I shot in January was so fat. So they're like fat coming out of winter.
Wow.
They don't need a ton of browse through the summer. I mean they do, but like, yeah, I love a mast crop. I don't care if you have hundreds and hundreds of acres of acorns. I'd rather hunt that than no mast crop. I'll leave, like Beau said. I'll go hunt lower elevation, find some mast. I'm not going to be there when the deer are far and few between, and it's like big forested area, and they're just relying on browse that doesn't even hardly grow there. Well,
I have a hard time like ours. They're moving them daggone mountain laurel, and they get in there, and it's daggone thick, and you try to get in there, them suckers know you're there, so it makes it tougher for me as far as that. Now, I don't get around the cuts much because generally they get more pressure. So, of course, you might have to think about it, because the does will still get in that stuff, but the bucks might go to them to check.
Well, see, like around my area here, they're starting to do more cutting, like Beau said, and it's putting more deer in the area. And I think I don't know if I'm right, maybe Kenny would know, but I think the last 3-4 years they did a lot of cutting, and I feel like they do so much cutting that the deer can't compete with all the succession of the plant life. So more takes off. But historically, 6-7 years ago, there was only a few cuts and a lot of big woods, and them few cuts had all the hunters and it had a lot of sign, right, but not the big ones would only, and I tell people, find the ideal areas with the clear cuts, the terrain, the water, habitat for the animals, different age classes of cuts and forest, and you'll find the general deer population being good, but then you can also bank on all the guys that are learning and listening to Beau's podcasts and reading, and they're going to these areas too. So like, start with that and then work, go downwind, get away from there. But know that holds the population of deer. And I always say if a mature deer either needs like, cover, rugged terrain, or just something that is inaccessible. First of all, you got to make sure there's those three things that he can survive year to year. So you have that in place, but then you have these ideal like habitat for deer, that the 2 to 3 the yearlings and all the does and family. So then you just got to start getting a little further away. And like you said, there'd be a lot of nighttime activity, him coming in there, but it's took so many years for me to learn that. Hunting them areas, seeing them big rubs. Oh, he's here, but he isn't. And I learned that some of these bucks will leave that big sign and rarely be there. Just kind of a calling card to all them little deer, like, right. Hey, I'm still here. Right. I'm not, but still. So sometimes you got to go downwind. It might be a half a mile or something to find where he's got his own little spot.
Or the other thing is like with the cuts specifically. So last year I was telling you about the Mad Rattler that was on the outside the edge of a cut. It was on the edge where it was rolling over the mountain, and I did have an encounter before I ran into that guy with an absolute giant deer. I don't know, Mike, if you've checked it out, but I just put a film out about my dad. And on YouTube, and the one clip of this really big deer, that's where that was me hunting there, had that encounter. And then it was like after that I was running to people on this outside so much, but this cut was so big, I was like, I need to go in that cut. And it got super windy that day, so I felt like I could get on the ground. It was November 1st. And I ended up going in that cut and just still hunting on the ground. And that's where I ended up shooting my deer in the center of that cut, in the thick, nasty spots where people couldn't put tree stands in there unless they were hacking things out and do it. I mean, I shot him at 10 yards because it was like that was still thick what I was shooting through in that situation. And I think sometimes that outside, at least like when it comes to the cuts, it's an outside the box thing, but I know what you're saying with and kind of the example Johnny gave, when there's only a few cuts, we're in a situation now in a lot of the areas I've hunted where they're cutting so much that you can't get enough hunters to pack all of the cuts.
Wow. Yeah, they're starting to pick up a little bit more of that main area. Some of the other areas they're cutting all the time. So,
are they?
Yeah, but I don't go them as much as they do the main area. We're on concentrate on try for the bigger bucks. So, So what made you in that cut? What specific? I mean, why did you stop right there wherever you shot the deer at? What kind of terrain or what?
So that was a situation where, and I'd been looking on a map because after I had the encounter with that big deer the first day I hunted there, I sat for another 3 days and didn't see anything, and I was like, I got to change something up, and I saw that wind coming, so I'm looking on the map, and I'm trying to look at the inside of the cut and looking for any difference. Like, there's this giant cut, so it all looks kind of the same, and I could just see two different kind of colors inside of an edge, and I'm like, that one area looks thicker than the other, and there's just kind of a transition line. So my plan was, with the way the wind was blowing, kind of blowing from the thicker stuff out, and when I say more open, it's still pretty thick, but there was a little bit more brokenness to it. So I was like, I'll work my way down and just call. I just go down, I call, snap on branches, call, just kind of like acting like a buck coming through there. And I'd actually bumped some deer, but the wind was in my direction. I heard them kind of just like trot off. And so I moved up to where they were. I could see the beds and it looked like a buck and a doe. And I could see a little opening about 10 yards in front of me, and I moved up just to where I could potentially get a shot. And then I just got down on my knees and I started calling, and then I heard brr, brr, and I heard a deer running, and a doe came out first, and this buck was bumping this doe back around, and she kind of worked her way through, and then all of a sudden I saw him just kind of coming through, and he wasn't, I mean, he was aggressive, but not. He was also kind of just like feeding as he's going through, just bumping this doe around, and that's how I shot him there.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it was just finding that little bit of that variation inside of that overall
micro habitat and a big habitat,
yeah.
basically, or something.
Yeah, I look at, and I know it's so different because in all the places that I've traveled to, clear cuts and logging cuts all look a little bit different. Each state kind of has their own way of how they do their management with them, but some areas where there's just these massive cuts, I look at them as their own ecosystem inside them, and there's their own habitat inside those cuts, and I think a lot of people don't want to go in them because they are hard to get into and move into. I'll see gun hunters go in there. You'll see ladder stands in there where they get up high so they can see over it and stuff. But as far as especially bow hunting, I don't see that as much.
Right.
Yeah, that's just something that I've kind of picked up with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Mike, before we kind of wrap things up, because you've been here for a while, and I appreciate you taking the time to.
I've enjoyed all of it. It's fantastic. It's great.
Yeah. So you're talking about last year that you said you didn't shoot a buck in your main area that you wanted to, but you did shoot a buck in Alabama last year. I want to hear that story.
So one in Kansas and Alabama.
Yeah, well, let's hear him.
The bigger one in Alabama was a guy come up with this group hunt thing, and he had a tornado area, was going to kind of circle. Well, me and a friend of mine, we went down there and met him the day before, and he was kind of setting up places for guys, and he said, I would like for you to go in this area, and I'd like for the other guy, my friend, to go in this area. So we kind of went in these areas and kind of picked out places, and we found some unique edges. And then the first day, I think we had 12 or 15 people. But anyway, I seen a couple of those pretty early. They were hanging out some thin stuff, just browsing around, and I just took a grunt call after the last one kind of disappeared and just done a deep roar and a couple of tendons. It wasn't 5 minutes. I heard something. Here comes sucker trotting, coming straight down there, looking straight toward where I was at. A nice buck, shot at nice 8-point, 5.5 or 6 year old 8-point. Just a good one for that area. Not going to score a whole lot, but it's a real cool, pretty buck. So
yeah.
It just happened just like that. So just from using that roar and the calling in an area that had those, and it had some signs. So just a unique thing. And out of that group, I was the only one that killed one. So.
Interesting. That's a cool way of describing a group hunt like that, where you guys
they actually call it a wolf pack hunt. They're circling a dang cut or area and letting some people's wind is going to affect part of it, and hopefully some sneak out or sneak back. And somebody gets a shot. But everybody was seeing they come, and it was right during the rut, and all kind of people, they were texting like crazy. Big buck checking the door here and all that. We never heard any shot. They were all basically, I don't know, for didn't have enough experience. I was like, crap, somebody will be shooting sooner or later or something. But anyway.
Put your phone down.
But bucks were chasing like crazy, let alone the concept of it, using other people's scent and stuff.
Yeah.
And also this guy, he knew where some other people would be hunting, so it was pretty cool. So we're actually going to do that again this year. And so,
nice.
So, but it's very cool.
That's fun.
Yeah. It's almost like the drive thing you're talking about. It's, similar to getting like that. And we used to have a group, my dad did. They were kind of basically the same way. They all had the same area. They hunted and kind of circling the place, different spots, held kind of on spots, and maybe the wind kind of affected, and they just didn't know that because back then ain't nobody pay attention to that much detail on stuff. They just knew they were getting to go in there and hunt. So.
Yeah, and I think and we've talked about this before, but I think the term driving sometimes can get a bad rap. It's like, oh, it doesn't take any skill, but. And maybe if you have 25 people that are pushing a certain thing or whatever, and I don't know, I've never been a part of one that big, but there's a lot of strategy that goes into the way that we set up drives, and it takes years sometimes to learn how deer are going to escape and using your wind in a certain way and how it's going to flow and hopefully being able to manipulate their movement. And it's very rarely that, say, 5 guys go across this side hill, bucks just run out right to the posters.
Yeah, run straight to somebody got put out and that ain't gonna happen.
It just doesn't happen that way.
So. A lot of times suckers circling back and stuff. I think Johnny or somebody was talking about the drivers didn't even have guns, so because of the safety part of it, so a lot of them bucks just circle back. So he's gone in. So.
Yeah, they think that time of year sometimes it's like they know the drivers aren't their their danger.
Right.
It's like it's what's out there is the danger. So the noise of the drivers making talking is like, okay, it's these guys. I just got to get around them. They go through and
Whack.
Yeah.
Funny. Oh my, yeah, that's cool. So
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. Johnny, do you have anything else for Micheal while he's here? Any other questions before we end it?
no, I want to get done with it so we can sit around and look at the deer. Have another drink so we ain't talking. We just sit here. Right.
It's fantastic. I really appreciate y'all letting me come in here and see this.
It's great to have people like you come up and do this. Like we're June, because this is. You go through March, April, May, and it's nothing with deer hunting. And, when you get together with people and talk like this, it's like the juices start flowing. It's like, man, but we still got a few months to go. But it's nice to have that feeling and telling stories and reliving the hunts this time of year.
Right. Y'all's hunting shows already happened up here, right? Y'all's early, where ours are fixing to start down south like next month, and it'll carry on for a couple months right before deer season. So that's fixing to happen. So that'll get the fire back.
Oh yeah.
So what y'all do? Y'all like in the big PA show was
February.
We still got deer season going on to the 10th, I think. So
yeah.
But anyway, I want to do that show. I hear a lot of talk about it, so I want to come up there and at least walk through it.
Oh, it's a lot. It's a good thing. I mean, it's a cool show. It's the biggest one in North America. So it's pretty wild.
I actually talked to you about it because we was thinking about coming up this year.
Yeah, because I looked into the hotel there for you.
Right. So in the Iowa one, I want to go to it.
Yeah, I'd like to go to the Iowa Deer
Class. It's an
Clap.
early one too, so I think it's February or March or something. So
yeah.
But yeah, this is great. Just sitting here talking and looking at these and just getting no blood start pumping. Just makes you start figuring these strategies out or trying to. So
yeah, no, I mean I really appreciate you thinking of us and coming by, stopping by, doing this and everything. I really enjoyed it, and I urge everybody to go check out your YouTube channel, 18 Outdoors.
Thank you.
Where can people buy your book at that you don't know the name of?
I got a link. I actually have a link on my YouTube things or on my Facebook things. So, but yeah, go on there if you want to buy it and get it. So I appreciate it. So still selling a few. I'm probably surprised. It's been going on for a couple of years now. So but hey, maybe I need to write another one. So, but
yeah,
fun, a little bit stressful, but hey,
I'll put a link here in the show notes of the podcast there, and check out Facebook and Instagram there, social media. So.
Yeah, Instagram's under 18 Outdoors, and Facebook just my name, so you can look me up. And then I love talking to a variety of people. I mean, just had a guy from Louisiana messaging me last night, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I love all that, and then this part of it, the camaraderie of it, just meeting everybody you get to see on stuff. Yep. Oh, you probably never even heard of me though, have you? I knew of you.
I mean, I've heard of you, but I didn't follow you on Instagram.
Well, you live up here, like you say, no cell service and all that. You can care anything about any of that stuff, do you? All you worry about is putting another one in a spot.
Yeah.
Hey, I can't blame you.
I told Beau, I said, I think I got enough for 5 here and 5 there. He said, you'll be good. I said, yeah, if I get 10 more up there, I'm probably done with them.
Yeah, right. That probably ain't going to happen.
No,
yeah, it ain't gonna
he said that.
Wheelchairing. Yep. One more.
I'm going to have Beau wheel me in.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. Again, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and for everyone that's listening, obviously Johnny over here. He's on here all the time, but the Johnny Stewart Instagram, the Johnny Stewart, and YouTube, putting out some good stuff there as well. So yeah, thank you guys.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.